All right, we're underway. Hey, this is Todd Bailey from Herbal Mana. And today, for episode number one, our very first episode, we get Dr. Dan Young. It's kind of interesting. I was in the gym this morning, listened to a podcast. It was episode 388 from Dan's podcast. Dr. Dan's been at this a while, about 5 years, it looks like. So, a good long history. And so, Dr. Dan, you prefer Dr. Dan, Dr. Young, or just Dan?
Dan is fine. Yeah, we're good. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some things with your audience. That's going to be very expansive. I know you're going to get a lot of great resources out to people that need your products and the message you have to carry.
Well, I appreciate that plug for the product.
You bet. We love it.
All right. Hey, how did you end up where you're at as far as practice? What was the path that you followed in the naturopath plus the nutritional background, which is present for most of the naturopaths I've talked to, but not nearly as deep, not nearly as thorough as the path you followed? How did that come about?
You know, it's one of the stories that I love to share the most with people, our new clients, as well as new listeners, your podcast and mine. In 1974, Todd, my grandfather had Parkinson's. He shook really bad in his right hand. And he was not responding to what I would consider a neurotoxic type medications. And it had some real nasty side effects. And the side effects were that he could become very disoriented and aggressive. No real solution, no real improvements. And we were concerned, obviously, that maybe he would come out from under one of these induced by the drug type of episodes and maybe harm our grandmother. We didn't know. We just didn't know. 1974. And so the primary care physician said, hey, we have this new and wonderful procedure, guaranteed that if you get this done, he will stop shaking. And they're like, well, great. It gets him away from the medications, sign him up and let's do this. And so they took him in the hospital in Townsend, Montana, and they basically cut the nerves in his wrist and he quit shaking, Todd. He also didn't use his hand again as it atrophied and lost use of the hand completely. And in the mainstream medical mindset, that was at some level a solution, okay? My father became very irritated, and that's putting it nicely. He started studying herbs and diets, and what could we do naturally in a non-invasive way to restore optimal function in the body. And from 1974 to 1998, he was what I refer to as a family practitioner. He worked on his kids. He worked on my mom, his grandkids, any family and friends that would let him work his herbs and dietary approaches with them. He was all about it. And he really was just a lay practitioner for 24 years. And when he was 55, he was going to retire. Mom said, you're too young to retire. You got to do something professionally or, some kind of project. And he said, great, I will start a clinic. I'll start a little herbal practice. And he started in a room not much bigger than my office in Torrington, Wyoming, of all places, and started working with people, consulting with them on what preparations they could do, what natural, safe, effective cleanses that they could use in their home for their family and their loved ones. And that was in 1998. And because I had done some side studies, growing up in it, you can't help but kind of pick up some of his books and some of the material and kind of run with it. And I joined him in November 1st of 2001, was able to complete by his side, which is one of the more unique aspects of our story, 2.5 years internship with him in the exam room, in the trenches, working with clients every day to help them achieve two things, which we'll probably talk about here in a little bit. And what's happened since then, in 2004, late 2004, early 2005, my father retired. He just turned 82. He's doing great. He's got a ponytail now and a beard, and he smells like herbs, and he's running around the beaches of Oregon, and he's loving life, and just finished building his own deck, remodeled the deck on his home. He did it himself. He's at 82, so he's doing well. And it's been a real blessing to be a part of and witness what has happened from that 2004, 2005, when he exited the arena, so to speak, And I really began my independent journey as a practitioner. I had lots to still learn. And we've got to the point now where we're very blessed. On average, we see between around 420 to 430 office visits a month that come through the clinic here in Cheyenne. That's our home base now, and have people traveling from all over the country. I did just this morning, had an appointment with a lady from Mission, Texas, and another lady from Missouri here in the clinic. So what's happened has been really quite a miracle. It's been a joy to be a part of and witness. We have about 10 people that are part of the Country Doctor family here at our main clinic here in Cheyenne. And like I say, we get to serve people's needs all over the country, and as well as practitioners. We work with a lot of practitioners, helping them establish the type of clinical impact that they desire in their communities and that their communities desperately need.
How are you connecting?
Hopefully,
Are you providing education? Are you providing practice techniques? Is it nutritional?
yeah.
What do you bring to those other practitioners?
We have a state and federally inspected lab that we produce all of our herbal products in. And we provide them wholesale accounts to use our products, our protocols in their clinical setting. We provide clinical reference material that really kind of covers from A to Z the different concerns that people can have and how to utilize them with their clients in clinical practice. We also find, Todd, that most practitioners don't come out of their respective schools with a clear understanding of what it takes to have a thriving, prosperous, sustainable business. We started capturing and documenting all of our techniques, our procedures, our communication, our follow-up methods, down to what we say when the phone rings. I mean, we've really documented it all. So we've got a opportunity to work with practitioners. They come here, they'll do shadow days. They'll follow me around for a day and see if what we do is a great match for what they're looking for. We have a practitioner weekend once a year where they come here for 2.5 days. And these are already established practitioners with us. They spend a weekend with us and kind of get up to date on any refinements, improvements, new resources that they can use to enhance, again, their clinical impact in their communities. And then we have a mentorship program where they'll come and stay with me for 6 days and do a deep dive immersion into following me around, seeing about 100 to 120 clients in about a 4-day period of time. And then they spend the next 2 days in the classroom putting together their specific plan of attack, plan of action that they want to implement in their community. And then for the next 3 to 6 months by phone, we make sure and evaluate how they're executing, the results they're getting, where do we need to refine their approach, and then re-execute with these refinements so that they can implement from day one a very solid, a very sustainable approach to building a natural health practice. And as a result of that, have the maximum impact that they want on their community and the health of their community in the process. So the byproduct is they become very prosperous, and the objective is to position them to know their job description, to put their practice in order, and position their community to thrive.
I like that. I like that you bring process to the practitioner. Some people chafe at process. I think in a business setting, proper process sets you free for that maximum impact, like you mentioned. I think it's crucial, and I think it allows for the real practice rather than what I see with some of my MD buddies, which is more just procedure. They're checking the box. They've got to see so many people, but it's driven by insurance. It's driven by the wrong side of the business. So that process you provide, that's incredible. How is it that you came to write a book?
Great question. Thank you for asking.
Oh, it's a great book. I've been through it. I had to go steal it back from my wife today. I was a little panicked this morning because it normally sits on my shelf behind me, and it wasn't there. She's into all kinds of natural, and I didn't know she had snagged my copy of the book.
My father wrote the original manuscript that made up that particular book in 2003. The title was By Appointment Only. In the 2017 revision, we discovered clinical pearls that work the majority of the time with clients, a sequence or a flow of proper cleansing, detailed a little more than the original in 2017. I thought I'd like to refine that. It's a great book. He did a great job with it for being self-published, just like I was. We re-released it, and it has really done very, very well. We're very pleased with the impact that book's kind of made itself around the world, not at breakneck speed, but very consistent, kind of like my company. It's like just a consistent climb up the mountain over an extended period of time for sustainability. And that's kind of the way the book's performing too. Is it's been around the world, but we're real thrilled to do it. And we're working on another one right now.
How does somebody get a copy of this? I know how I got my copy.
Yeah.
How does somebody find this? I think it's on your website. Is that the place to go?
It is on my website, or they can just call the clinic. I can give you my direct number, and we ship these out everywhere. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Something kind of interesting in my space with Herbal Mana, we're working on chronic pain. And what's interesting is we'll have people that contact us. They want to rub something on for the chronic condition. And occasionally, well, actually, at least once a week, somebody will email or give us a call. I put it on last night and it still hurts this morning. We didn't fix the chronic condition. I've had this knee issue for 10 years. I thought it would go away overnight.
Yeah. One of the educational pieces that we adhere to clinically with new clients, regardless of the thing, I always let them know it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get stable and 1 to 3 years to get well. If true wellness is what the person wants, your product, the quality of it, what we've seen clinically in the use that we've had of it, but what we find is that there's always that entrance point for clients in natural health. They've tried this, they've tried that, they've gone to that doc, they've had that shot. Nobody can speak to this better than you with your past experience in terms of the operations and things that you've gone through and dealing with chronic pain. And it takes time you have to give the body an opportunity to respond. And this is not a pill for the ill. This is not pharmacopoeia. Their philosophy is, here's your script, just take these every day and I'll see you next year. This is about actual restoration of function. And so the symptom is pain, but the underlying driving cause takes some time. And products like Herbal Mana, products like Country Doctor, they take time to help to restore function in the body. And that's what people are so uneducated on in America. It's the quick fix mentality. It's the medical approach with the Amazon mindset. It's the quick delivery, and it doesn't work that way.
I like the fact that you're spending so much time on nutrition to get to the real root of the problem. But it's funny. Yes. People think they can rub it on, be done. Chronic condition will be gone.
I've never had a client use your product that they didn't see results, right? Every single time. 20%, 40%. I got one guy with chronic back over 20 years, and within 6 weeks, as much as 60% improvement. And that's all he changed, was a consistent use of Herbal Mana, which is great. I love that. He would be at 80 or 90 or better if he quit eating processed foods, which are like gas on a fire in a chronic inflammation case. So it's within our clients' control to make those choices and control the things that they're doing, especially with diet, lifestyle, stress management, movement, amount the water they're consuming, right? That's within their control. But you can't just rub something on, like you say, for 3 to 5 days and see 80% improvement. 20 or 30 probably, in some cases 50, right, in their words. But these other factors have to come into play in order to achieve true wellness. Your product's a great gateway product for a lot of the clients that we work with. We see a lot of pain cases, a lot of women with hip issues after childbearing. That's one of those things. It's like, hey, this is going to help give you some relief, desperately needed relief, take you down out of stress while we go after some of the more underlying causes that are driving this condition. But it takes 3 to 6 months to get stable, 1 to 3 years to get well. Regardless of what brings a client to my clinic, that is the message they receive day one in our orientation class.
The folks that come in that are hurting, that are coming in with bad habits, if you had to pick 2 or 3 of the worst things most of them are doing that they should stop, what would those be?
Number one thing The number one thing that I see is people are confused. People think there's such a thing as junk food. There's no such thing as junk food. There's junk and there's food. Okay? No such thing as junk food. It's junk or it's food. Now, the sooner you move away from junk and consistently real food, your body will perform better. Now, how long that takes, that's up to you. The number two thing we talk about with clients is everybody that we see, regardless of what brings them to us, has two things going on every time with their body's inability to perform. Number one, they have a toxic load. And number two, they have a nutritional deficiency of some kind or some form. The goal of good nutritional therapeutics is to shift the scale. So we reduce the toxic load over time and correct nutritional deficiencies. That's where it takes time, patience, effort to achieve that.
Why can't I just go to Costco and get my Kirkland brand multivitamin to get that balanced?
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. A friend of mine, Dr. Raj, in San Diego area of California, he said something 20 years ago. I never forgot it. He said, isolates never work as good or as long as whole food concentrates and herbal remedies, because the isolates don't contain the genuine replacement part for the organ, the system, the blood, the hormones, the endocrine system, brain cognitivity, don't have the genuine replacement parts to restore, rebuild, and repair. Isolates don't. That's the difference. Your Kirkland vitamin and mineral makes your urine a pretty color.
I remember it was about 10 years ago, bought some Kirkland. He thought he was going to start getting healthy, got his first couple of days worth of it, and he couldn't, he thought it was hilarious. He had cartoon pee, he called it cartoon colored pee. It was so yellow and bright. And I said, that's a problem. That's not a good thing. That's a problem. Something's not being absorbed. It's just passing through. You're spending a whole bunch of money just to flush that away.
These bodies are designed to restore, rebuild, and repair when given food. You can't give them junk. You have to give them food.
All right. So you're talking about getting back in balance.
Yeah. I love that analogy too. And I've had people share similar stories. So the other thing that I always make sure that people understand is that 4 pillars, I call it the 4 pillars. In fact, I'm teaching my Nutrition 101 class tonight for 16 to 18 people that are local. They're new clients. I do it once a month. It's a public kind of get together. And we talk about the 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are diet, stress reduction, movement, and rest, right? These are the 4 pillars. Like any good table that's got good solid 4 legs on it, it's very stable, it's very sturdy, it can bear a lot that comes down on it when we have these 4 pillars in place. And obviously my area of focus is the nutritional side, to reduce the toxic load. I'm a 4:30 a.m. guy, so I'm up at 4:30. I'm in the gym at 5. I've got a 6 to 7 o'clock morning men's group I love to attend. We guys get together and start our day. And then I get home and start my day from there. And I like movement. I like good quality rest. I'm asleep by 9. So I'm getting a solid 7.5 hours of good rest. Plenty of hydration in the morning. Those are kind of the 3 areas that we really, really focus on. And we give them the right resources, help demonstrate with them by watching us what we do. If my clients want to see my food logs, I've got them. I can show people my diet, right? I mean, I don't ask people to eat the dog food I'm not eating, so to speak. So when I'm doing that and I can show that to them, it helps encourage them to stay the course long enough to get the kind of results that I know they can get if they'll focus on these 2 or 3 key principles.
In the morning, when you get up, you go straight to the coffee maker and start guzzling caffeine, or do you have a different routine? 30
ounces of water. First thing in the morning, room temperature. I don't like hot beverages really to speak of. And then I'll refill my 48-ounce water jug that I carry with me everywhere I go. Take it to the gym, do that routine. My first cup of coffee, I do like a cup of coffee, black coffee, 1 or 2 a day, maybe. And my first cup of coffee doesn't hit my system until 6:15, 6:30 maybe. So I've been up for a solid 2 hours and I've already consumed right at 50 ounces of water before I start the other routine. I do that 5 days a week. Typically, I take Saturday and Sunday off from the gym routine, but you know yourself, once you kind of get in the habit of getting up early, there's different things I do early in the mornings on Saturdays and Sundays.
I can't do that sleeping on the weekend thing. Once I get established, it doesn't matter. I occasionally, even this morning, I was thinking, maybe I can get that extra half an hour. No, 5:30, up and going. Got that habit. Dang it all.
Yeah. Well, discipline equals freedom,
Yes.
Discipline, when you talk about using what I consider to be a very dynamic yet simple, right? The amazing aspect of like a product like Herbal Mana, I just love it. I just think it's great, right? But a simple discipline of making certain you're using a good quantity multiple times a day if necessary, good friction, massaging that in, people don't think that it matters, but I think paying attention to the disciplines and being consistent with them is how you're going to get the best results.
What's that consistency throughout the day? Diet, water, Herbal Mana, whatever it is, consistent.
Yep.
I do that. Got my routine every morning, exactly the same thing every morning. I know what works.
Yep.
Sticking to it, regardless of how I feel, regardless of the weather, regardless of what I did the night before. Just stick to the routine. Okay, for a lot of our folks, inflammation is a problem.
Yes.
It is not just because of an injury. Often the folks who talk to us talk about the bad ankle, they tore it up in high school. And yes, there's some achiness there. And it could be residual for a long, long time. But they've also got a back that hurts all the time, shoulders that ache. It used to be when they were younger, they might play football and get hurt. They might jump off a haystack and get hurt. Now going to sleep can be dangerous. You can wake up with all kinds of creakiness in the morning.
Yeah.
How do you coach people to handle that?
It's a great question. There's different types of inflammatory expression. And that's one of the things that the old naturopaths, and I say old naturopaths, I'm thinking of Paul Bragg's and some of those turn of the century folks that really focused on, is this a nerve issue? Is it connective tissue? Is it bone? Is it nutritional deficiency? Could be an oil deficiency of some kind, essential fatty acids. I've seen some of the most horrid internal and inflammatory issues clear up with either wheat germ oil or black currant seed oil, taken consistently 5 to 6 pearls every day for a few weeks and clears it right up. So it could be an oil issue. There are injuries, the old injuries. We use cold laser in my clinic. So it's a red light laser device. There's several of them on the market today. When I first got in clinical practice in 2001, the gold standard was by a company called Urconia, and their little handheld light device was $7,000. Okay. Their equivalent of that device today with technology and upgrades is about $38,000. But I found a lot of other devices in the last 20 years that give me just as good a result at a fraction of the investment, because I have clients that buy these. You take a product like black currant seed oil or wheat germ oil or Herbal Mana, for example, and put it on topically on the skin, on the surface, and then use a red light device, the photonic energy that can carry that even faster. Now we know DMSO is amazing, great penetrator, doesn't really need much help, but to take that systemically throughout the tissue and spread it out, we've seen people that use a topical, get good results. Add cold laser into the picture, and it amplifies the results and how long those results last. So that's some of the things that we look at. There's different types of pain, circulatory pain. I've had people that their legs ache, just a deep ache, and it's usually in the quad muscle area, in the back of the legs. Put them on the proper cardiovascular support in a short period of time, and they stop having microcapillary stress where they're not uptaking oxygen. That's where you get people with Raynaud's syndrome. Their hands and feet turn purple. And that's a microcapillary cardiovascular issue that I found. With the right cardiovascular support, you can start correcting those kind of things. So you can have a deep pain because of lack of oxygen. There can be a toxicity. Sciatic nerve pain, great one that we discovered, just a practice principle. Chronic sciatic nerve pain. And we do a metal or chemical detox. It's an oral chelation to reduce the toxic load, metals and chemicals that we get from our environment, air, water, and food pollution, eating junk, whatever the source is, over an extended period of time. And this stuff likes to deposit along the spinal column into the sciatic nerve pathways on either the right or left side. Sometimes it's both. We start doing metal and chemical detox, and we found that the removal of this toxic load, this burden, greatly improved, if not completely eliminated, sciatic nerve pain without additional supplementation, topical or oral, without cold laser, and without even chiropractic adjustments or acupuncture. So it's fascinating to me. And we discovered that about 12 years ago, maybe. And we have an oral chelation product, HP heavy metal, and it's a liquid, and it actually goes through and allows the body to chelate and bring out these toxins for elimination. There's other things that we do to back that up because we don't want to reabsorb toxins, right, back into some other organ or system. We want to have a gathering mechanism to pull that out. And these can be done very effectively with an oral application of herbal remedies. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go about it.
If what about ice baths? Folks talk about ice baths being some way to reduce inflammation. I've done plenty because of injuries over the years.
Yeah.
What does it really do as far as helping with inflammation? It's a great wake up in the morning, but truly miserable.
Yeah.
Does it really help?
It basically, we had a gal that fell off a mountainside in the mountains of North Idaho, had to be airlifted out, life flighted out, and had a compound fracture on her arm. And took all the goodies out of the ice jug that we were carrying up with us, the tote, and immersed her arm in that ice and knocked the pain off. And the reason it killed the pain is because the prostaglandin flow throughout the bloodstream was restricted. So the inflammation signal was just shut off, right? Which helped to reduce the pain. And that's really what you find with the cold plunges. When you get that cold, it drives all the blood flow deep into the internal organs. It's a self-preservation kind of response to these cold plunges. And so the blood flow and circulation to the extremities is minimized because they want to keep the internal organs safe and protected. So the body drives all that blood flow deep. Then when you get into the hot, as you know, you bring all that blood flow back to the surface. So that's one of the effects that these cold plunges, immersing with ice, covering with ice on a pain area, helps to mitigate, is that when you reduce the blood flow, you reduce prostaglandin effects in the blood, which is kind of the markers that drive these inflammatory responses.
So worth doing?
Yes.
Okay, you do them?
Because it really stimulates the metabolism, because when you drive that blood deep into the core of your body and core organs, it really just over amplifies oxygenation. It helps them to detoxify better, and it will pull impurities out of the lungs, the liver, kidneys, gallbladder, the prostate in men. And then when you warm the body back up, it helps to push those things out of those deep organs from having all that excessive blood flow. There's a lot of metabolic benefits to this type of thing as well, to stimulate a metabolic response. And the body's part of metabolism is to reduce and remove impurities. When you do that cold plunge, it drives that deep and then pulls it back out. It can be very beneficial.
That's something interesting I found. This is going back to high school. I torn up my foot and ankle pretty badly. I found I could jimmy the lock on the training room in the gym. I would go over at lunchtime. I do an ice bath and a hot bath, just putting my leg in my foot. And I would go back and forth, cold for 5, hot for 5. And I do that through the lunch hour. My pain, which was pretty exquisite, was reduced, 75, 80%. And I could go to basketball practice then. Without that, I could walk. Could hardly walk. That contrast is amazing. Besides the inflammation and all of the benefits of the healing, the pain modulation, or maybe it's the temperature modulation, reduced what I perceived as far as the pain in that joint.
Yep.
So huge.
Yep. Hydrotherapy techniques, I think, have been used if not used the longest by man compared to eating herbs, right? And discovering the botanicals of the world that are therapeutic. I think that therapy has a long proven history for being very beneficial.
Absolutely. Online, I can see some great information on your site. I see the blog. I see the podcast, and it looks like you're on 10 or 12 different platforms.
Yep.
The book and the network of folks that you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So great resources. Also,
Yeah.
when I go online, I see competing resources, some that I really don't like. One of the most searched sites online is WebMD.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have clients that come in and say, hey, I saw on WebMD, I've got this problem. I've self-diagnosed, or I've been on WebMD and I think it's this, or here's my information, or frankincense doesn't do anything because WebMD says this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you run into that in your practice? Stuff like that.
Yes, we have shared experience in this area. I call them cyberchondriacs. They need to quit going to Dr.
Sure.
Google and, quit, being a cyberchondriac. The other thing is depending upon their level of commitment to that article on WebMD or whatever, will determine my attitude, right? If they're there to embrace my culture, my education platforms, my in-office handouts, my in-office monitoring, the success rates that we've been able to duplicate with thousands of people around the country, then we're going to talk. If they're there to convince me that they found an article that they feel is a better approach, then it's going to be a very short appointment. Mm-hmm. We're going to end it respectfully. And I'm just going to say, great, you seem very convinced of this. So what I want you to do yourself a favor for the next 3 to 6 months, go do that. Do it consistently, do it, honestly, and do that and see how you respond. And if after 3 to 6 months, if you're not completely thrilled with your results, then we may have some resources that you may find beneficial. But when we do it this way, we do it this way. Okay? If you want to do that, be my guest, go to that other practitioner, go to that other resource that you feel strongly about. That's great. Then go do that. Be consistent. Don't give it lip service. Be, 3 to 6 months, really focused. Compliance is the king. Okay. You do that. And then let me know how you're doing. I'm serious. I want to know, because again, at the end of the day, results is the name of the game. I want to see you better. Right. But that's kind of like if I want to go into CRMC, Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, walk in to their cardiology wing and say, you know what, you guys have been doing it all wrong. This article that's written by Caldwell Esselstyn, fourth leading cardiologist in the country, works at Cleveland Clinic, has rave reviews. The guy's in his 80s and 90s. He's reversing heart disease. I can walk in there with that level of proof. And they're going to look at me and say, this is our culture. We do our policies and procedures. This is our approach. And you're certainly welcome to leave Caldwell's book with our hospital administrator. Thank you for stopping by, right?
Well, that makes sense.
So we have a culture that works. We don't have all the answers, but we have a duplicatable approach that seems to, thus far, be getting the highest level of results in the greatest number of cases, whether the person is dealing with, and these are symptoms, by the way, because we don't work with disease, whether the person is dealing with allergies, high blood pressure, insomnia, hormonal problems, metabolic dysfunction, microbiome, total leaky gut syndrome. I don't care what the thing is. What matters is what's the cause and what resources do we have that you'll execute on consistently, not perfectly, but consistently over an extended period of time, 3 to 6 months, maybe 1 to 3 years, but 3 to 6 months for sure is a minimum to restore optimum function in your body. That's what matters. And we have to establish that. I meet with clients. I have 5 different contacts with a brand new client before I ever agree to accept their case and bring them into the clinic and start monitoring a program and put them on protocol, nutrient supplements, dietary regimen, whole food concentrates, whatever that is, before they ever start that side of the equation, I have at least 5 contacts with them.
Wow.
Our screening process is what allows us to embrace that client that's a great match for us, position them to thrive, create long-lasting partners, really, because you get the mom, you get the daughter, the son, the husband, the aunts, the uncles, the co-workers, the church attendees, right? And that's the approach that we know works best. So they call the clinic. We meet them up I do an orientation class. For attending the class, the first 2 visits are complimentary. We have a phone conversation in between those 2 first and second visits to really explore and make sure we're a great match before we ever agree to start a program and they start spending their hard-earned money. And right now, for a lot of people, money's a big consideration. If they're going to make an investment of something like this, they want to make sure they're going to be positioned to have the greatest return on that investment that they possibly can, because they may be skimping on some meals here and there to make it work, or, nights out, or they're going to have to redirect money that they're spending elsewhere. I understand that. I'm sensitive to that. And I see it all the time. And so we want to make absolutely certain they're getting the best value for their dollar. And more importantly, is that they're getting their best value for their time, because they never can get the time back. They can get the money back. They can never get the time back. And so you dealing with someone who's got cancer or leukemia, or they've already had a heart bypass, or they're already cutting organs off of these people, thinking that's some pathway to wellness. There's a lot of challenging people out there that their health is challenged. They don't understand why. They're frustrated. They're full of fear. They're financially tapped, and they need the type of resources that we offer on a daily basis, and the accessibility of those resources, the affordability of those resources is what we've really focused on the last 20 years. And I thank God we did. We've seen miracles take place with people in our community and with people around the country and with other practitioners, and the things they're able to now bring to their communities as a result of this. And so it's truly been a huge blessing. I've been at this, for 23 years, almost 24 years now, this November. And in some ways, Todd, I know you probably identify with this. I feel like in some ways I'm just getting started, right? I mean, I just feel like there's another easy 20 to 30 years of being a part of this and having the kind of impact that we've had.
Pretty exciting. And one thing I do like throughout everything I consume from you, the book, the podcast, everything else, I like that I come away with a clear understanding that I've got to do something. I've got to do it regularly. I've got to have some consistency. I don't just pop a pill. I get a plan. I don't know if this is a guy thing, but I like checklists. I like plans. I like process and procedure. And that resonates with me, and it comes through in all the podcasts, in particular when you're presenting or you and your partner are presenting. I know you have guests on as well, which is awesome. When you guys present, it's all about process. It's not just eliminate this one thing and your life is wonderful. Take this one supplement, your life is wonderful. It's a process, a plan, something that's going to be followed. And that I like. And I can see that would probably, well, actually, I would love that as a practitioner, having somebody to come in and say, here's how you run the practice. Here's how you answer the call. The process for me is very enabling. And both on the receiving end, as far as a patient, client, as well as a business guy. So I love that.
Like I say, it's just been an amazing journey. It's been a blessed journey. This year in August, this will be my first time. I've been a member of the American Naturopathic Medical Association since 2000. This is the first year I'll be one of their main floor speakers. So I'm really excited about that, sharing on this. I did their podcast back in February. The administrator of the ANMA and the administrator of the Naturopathic Certification Board that administers the national test were the 2 folks on there at the same time doing the interview. And we had a delightful conversation. I had some folks come in from Indiana, from Texas, and from Oklahoma as a result of that one podcast. They reached out, got a hold of me and says, hey, I want to know more about your resources and upcoming events that you have at your clinic. And, they've become partners with us, and, more practices out there just from one podcast, 3 more practices out there in the world that are going to be positioned And don't get me wrong, these people are great practitioners. They're good healers. They know their craft, right? It's just refinements. We just got to make those simple refinements that really puts the last tumbler in the lock and opens the door, because they've got a lot of grit. They're bringing more to the table than I am. I'm just bringing some of the missing pieces, right? And so we're grateful for that. And so we're going to be speaking in Las Vegas in August.
Well, it's awesome that you're reaching out and you've got that network. I do find a lot of practitioners that feel like they're practicing alone on an island. And when they have peers, especially peers that are not in their backyard, that are not threatening, that is awesome. I'm early in my career as a professional. One of the most difficult things I had was to find somebody I could ask questions, because I had big questions, big needs, and I couldn't call the next firm, the firm next door, because I felt like I was calling a competitor. I was probably wrong, because I think genuinely most people are caring, giving, willing to share. Eventually I figured out how to reach out outside of my community. And it was very freeing to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, I'm thinking this thought. Is it crazy? Is it not crazy? So having a network is great for a lot of practitioners. In fact, I have a lot of clients I consult with now that are naturopaths, other physicians. They are feeling like they're alone until they finally connect to a network. So it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. I like that.
It's been just a real blessing for us. I've really appreciated it. It's one of the things that I have a real passion for. My early days, one of the things I left out of my initial story, 2003, 2004, I was going through what's called education by bloodletting, which means, as you know, being in business, that I was learning the real hard way. When my father pulled out as the lead clinician, and even though I had worked with him for 2.5 years in the trenches side by side, we did not pass authority. The torch of authority was never officially passed from him to me in the minds of our clients, and our business dropped almost 60% overnight. And it really threw us in a tailspin. I had stress-induced psoriasis all over my scalp so bad that it was all purple. And I literally thought I was going to crash the family practice. And I met a guy by the name of George Bernbach. He's with 5-Star Management. He taught a class in Florida in 2005. I went to a weekend I couldn't afford, spent money I didn't have, but I learned from this gentleman from a practical, process-driven, sustainable side of the business. And George and I still talk to this day. Still in contact. He's moved on to other things. He built 4 clinics across the country and sold them. And, he's kind of semi-retired now. And, he had such amazing impact on me. And then we moved on and learned even more and done even more since 2005 to now, going on the last 20 years, that we've captured it, kind of made our own pillars, simplified it, made it more efficient, as we should in business, right? We should look for those ways. It's like, we can do it that way, but if we do it this way, we save time and money and we get better results. Well, that's kind of the name of the game when you're in business. And so it's been an amazing experience, but that education by bloodletting is what I'm trying to save some of these other practitioners that are coming out of these schools. They know their modality, they're well educated, but they don't have any practical plan to follow for the first 3, 6, 9, 12 months to establish the type of business momentum they need to create a prosperous, sustainable business. And there's lots of companies out there doing what I do. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of them out there. They don't have a model clinic where you can follow somebody around and see it in the trenches. I think that's kind of one of our unique features to our resources. They'll take you in a classroom and they'll teach you exactly what to do and say, and here's your forms, all you want, but you still have to implement. You have to execute, and you have to see it. I don't believe that we learn in the classroom. I believe we learn in the exam room. And so we've captured that side of it for practitioners. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I just love continuing to go on.
Yeah, I like it. Like the enthusiasm. Love the approach to the practice. Do you have any last bits of wisdom to share as we wrap up?
I appreciate you having this, putting me on. I look forward to downloading and sharing with the world episode 1.
Episode 1. Only 399, and I'll catch up to you.
I just published Friday my 431st podcast.
431st. All right, 430 to go.
Patrick Alonso from Tampa, Florida. You'll want to tune in. He's a great guy.
Awesome.
You know, the thing is that quit analyzing and start utilizing, right? Get with someone who's got the experience and just follow their procedures and realize that nobody does this perfectly. When you're ill and you don't feel good and you're trying to restore your health, and then there's insecurity and the financial burden that we start worrying about. Well, now we got worry and that's driving it. We got all these things going on. Experienced practitioners understand all that. We do. We understand that. We appreciate it. We acknowledge it. And I'm not diminishing it. However, you and I, with this resource, we can walk away from that pretty quickly once we focus our energies in the right direction. And don't be off course with that. You know, realize that that's what it's going to take. And you're in the driver's seat. You get to make the decisions. There's always two relationships going on with a client. There's the relationship I have with the person, and then there's the relationship the client has with their program. And they're two distinct relationships. Our relationship is always going to be honest, upfront, candid, compassionate, loving, right? All those things that we want in a great, healthy relationship. But I'm here to tell you, you and your program are going to have some bumps in the roads. You and your program are going to have some ups and downs. And so that's why I'm here to help coach you through that, give you the right resource, let you know the execution, what to anticipate to the best of our ability and experience. It's going to take your dedication, your effort, your consistency to realize that it's 3 to 6 months to get stable. It's 1 to 3 years to get well. There's no way around that. My job is to help maybe shorten that curve, if possible, to save you time and money in the process. But you got to put forth the effort. And when you do, you'll reap the reward.
I love that. I know personally, I've got that same wrestle with my plan, with my naturopath. I got that everyday battle, but I do follow instructions. If she gives me the instructions, there's no point in going to an expert, no point in going to see you in Cheyenne if I won't do the work.
Yeah.
So hopefully folks will do that, take that advice, the counsel seriously, get that healing thereafter.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Dan, it's been a pleasure. I truly appreciate having you on in episode 1. Hopefully I'll have you back for episode 400.
There you go.
Hopefully it won't take 5 years, but we'll see. I really appreciate your time. This is awesome.
Thank you for your time, Todd.
Take care.